My name is Dr. Gyda Sindre and I'm a researcher at the Department of Politics and International Studies at the University of Cambridge. I'm also the founder of the Politics After War Research Network, which is an international research network with scholars and practitioners who are working on political party dynamics in civil war affected countries, as well as civil society dynamics, political mobilization and state building.
Our research focuses on four main themes, so rebel party transformation, political parties, state building, and democratization. We're particularly interested in rebel party organization and what happens when rebel movements transform into political parties. We're interested in the quality of democracy and peace after conflict. And we're interested in variation between different cases.
One is an academic reason, and that is there is generally a gap in the literature. I mean, I'm a political parties person, and people in my field have tended to ignore civil wars as being aberrant and exceptional. But then I also worked on civil wars and conflict, and most people who study civil wars talk about parties, but they don't really know the literature on political parties. So essentially this sort of field transcends both, and I really believe that it can help inform and refine the literature in both fields.
The first workshop, we were really bringing together scholars who were interested in studying state building and the aftermath of war, but not from the perspective of institutional development, but from the perspectives of the state builders themselves. What we found from the presentations at this workshop was that there's a clear gap in the literature and also a clear research interest in how former armed groups who become political parties impact on state building.
When I was doing my dissertation research, was right when liberal peace building got started as a model, and it struck me as a very strange idea that in addition to trying to build peace, that you would do that on the basis of another challenging thing, which is to build democracy. And studying political parties for me was a way into sort of understanding that democratization process.
I think it's really important to study rebel to party transitions because it's a very important and decisive moment in the history of a country. So we can learn a lot about war to peace transitions through looking at these rebel organizations. So really it's a lens through which to understand all sorts of transitions from going from conflict to peace. We can also learn a lot about organizational dynamics. We can learn a lot about authoritarianism, democratization, peace building, state building. I mean, there's all sorts of bigger themes that this touches on as well.
The other is a very practical reason, and that is if we can figure out how to incentivize rebel groups to become political parties that will peacefully participate in the political process after a civil war, I think this would help build democracy, good governance, and political stability.
Working in FBA as a practitioners and policy institution implementing policies, I know the relevance of the big debate about inclusion. And it's important for us to understand, what does this mean in reality? What are the effects of including non-state armed actors into peace processes when having them as signatories to a peace agreement or having them as participating in elections? And all those questions about inclusion are important for us as researchers to look at and evaluate and understand in order for us to be better to give policy advice to practitioners where the issue of inclusion is high on the agenda.
And for the past year and a half, I've been working as head of policy planning at NATO. But for the previous 10 years, I worked mostly in the Middle East, working around issues pertaining to rebel politics. And I was really focused on the question of why do rebel groups decide to participate in elections? What drives them to make those choices?
I look at why rebels moderate and give up violence and take up exclusively peaceful methods, and also why they sometimes remain radical and why they don't moderate under conditions in which you might expect them to.
I like the people.
Lots of things. I mean, first of all, I think that the people, it's a terrific group of people, great network. It brings together different scholars at different stages of their careers, which is fantastic.
And appreciate them in part because everybody around the table has been reading the same sorts of things that I've been reading and thinking about the same kinds of puzzles that I've been thinking about. And that allows us a shorthand that rather than having to explain the literature and how you're responding to somebody else, the group gets that very, very quickly. And that allows you time to really dig into the logic of the argument.
It has a deep focus on the research questions that I really ask myself in my day-to-day work, but he also brings together scholars from many different perspectives. So what you really have is a very deeply granular discussion on issues of rebel politics in a way that you really cannot have in many other places.
Because I think the network really celebrates methodological, theoretical, and sort of case plurality. So we all bring something different.
We have people who are expert in different cases, who use different methodologies, who have different experiences, and I just really find it useful to get that feedback from people who are looking at the same sorts of things but from different directions.
And it helps you both to shape your own ideas and be sharper in your own arguments, but also to understand your own research. And it's only through that sort of collection of research that we're able to really make a contribution.
And one of the issues that it's really interesting for me in the discussion that come across in the PAW network is the interaction between the theory and the practice. And I'm looking forward to having more of these interactions between academics and practitioners as we move forward.